Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a review here for a 1983 John Carpenter movie that I think is one of his absolute best, easily in my top 5, no questions asked, no doubt about it. This is Christine, based on the Stephen King book about a killer car. And this one is so much better than that horrible book. Stephen King's book is so boring and so messy in my opinion. This movie gets it right. John Carpenter's one of those people that can take a concept from an author and really do something special with it, like he did with his The Thing remake. I love this movie. This is the same DVD I've had since I was probably about 11 or 12. I think even before that. I might have been younger. My parents, specifically my dad, talked about this movie all the time. My mom thought it was stupid, so she never watched it. And my dad always talked about how cool it was. I wasn't a car guy yet. I'm not really a car guy now, but in my teenage years, I had that time that I liked cars. And I think this movie and Midnight Club 3 on the PSP are what kind of introduced me to that, alongside Exhibit on Pimp My Ride. Anyway, some weird things I'm bringing up already in a Christine review. Who would have known? You probably didn't know that before you clicked on this video. Christine is such a great flick. Everything about it, from Christine herself, the beautiful car here that I'm not even sure what that's called. I always thought it was a Bel Air. I don't think it's a Bel Air. Anyway, from that to the cinematography, to the directing and camera work, to the car chases, because there's a couple of those in here since the killer is a car, to the kind of almost ghost story, almost murder mystery thing that's going on, to the slasher elements, because this movie is basically a slasher movie, in case you haven't seen it before. I'm going to tell you up front, before I even get too far into this, Christine is one of the best movies ever made in the horror genre, and I stand on that. It's probably in my top 20 favorite horror movies of all time. I think it's still, to this day, a hidden gem. Not so much in the horror community, but like in movie fandoms in general. I don't think enough people who are fans of movies in general talk enough about this movie. It's kind of one of those movies who get name dropped here and there, kind of like Cujo, you know, another Stephen King property. But anyway, I love the movie. I'm going to go on a big rave fest for this review, so I hope you're in tune for that. Basically, Christine is about a young man named Arnie Cunningham who has kind of a nerdy tendency about him. He dresses really dorky, he wears glasses that are taped up in the middle, he gets bullied at school, he looks like he's 35, because most of the teenagers in this movie have to be in their 30s. He has a best friend who he's been friends with his entire life, who is a jock and a football player, like a football star. And his name is Dennis, and I love Arnie and Dennis. I love their friendship, I love how close they are. And basically one day, Dennis has to drive Arnie around all the time. One day, Dennis happens to be driving Arnie home, and they pass a particular lot that has a rundown, kind of old, rusty car from the 50s. Of course, this takes place in the 80s, so this car is probably out of date, just like you and I would look like an old Toyota, or like a, I don't know, like an older car in general, and say, hell no, I'm not paying you that much money for that. If you can find a used car, that is, right now. So Arnie immediately falls in love with his car as soon as he sets his eyes on it. It's kind of a play on that love at first sight mentality. And he buys the car on the spot without talking to his parents, which is weird because his parents are very much helicopter parents. They decide things for Arnie. They do not discuss things with Arnie, which is a very particular way to have this character. And Arnie says for the first time in his life he wants to do things his way, just have this one thing that he's always wanted. He just got his license recently. This is his first ever car and he's so excited about it. He brings it home. His parents tell him, no, you're not going to keep that junk heap here. You wasted all your life savings on it, so on and so on. And he has to take it to another garage where he begins to pay rent there, essentially, to keep that car there. But also is allowed at this junkyard to rebuild his car. And man, he makes it so beautiful. But then Dennis and the girl that Arnie begins to date at school begin to realize Arnie is starting to change. He's starting to slick his hair back like he's a greaser from the 50s. Like he's about to go kill some Socs in a park, you know? And rename himself to Pony Boy or Soda Pop or something. And he begins to listen to a lot of like 50s music and 60s music and so on and so on. And murders begin to take place around the town, mainly at school, with guys that are connected to Arnie who typically seem to be guys who were bullies to him at school. which this is the part that, even though I talked about and kind of spoiled the fact that the car is haunted, that's something you know from the get-go. What you don't know in the movie that's kind of a nice slasher murder mystery in here, for a movie that's not all that bloody, by the way, it really doesn't have any blood at all in it as far as I remember. Most of this is the wonder of whether the car is killing people or whether Arnie is killing people with the car. We're not really sure, but pretty much every kill in this movie is done with the car, whether it be running people over, slamming them into walls, whatever. I love it. It is so creative for that part, but the big thing that's a surprise for Christine is how atmospheric it is. It has a great looming kind of danger over the whole film. There's one scene where Dennis and Arnie are riding in the car, and Arnie is driving, obviously, and he's speeding really fast at night around Christmas time, and Dennis is in the passenger seat kind of, tensing up. He doesn't want to yell at his friend to slow down, but he's tensing up because they're going like 95 on a street, not an interstate. And that stuff is really tense, this danger looming there, how Arnie is convinced the car is alive, and it may probably be for real alive and not just haunted. We're not really sure. But the movie is wonderful. The practical effects are amazing in here. It's John Carpenter. There is no CGI in the movie, which is really crazy and insane. The practical effects are so freaking great, dude. I love them. I don't want to spoil anything for you in case you have not seen this amazing gem of a movie. You deserve to see it completely unspoiled and unsoiled, dude. It is so worth your time and effort. The soundtrack is amazing. Everything from, in my opinion, the first amazing use of Bad to the Bone before Terminator ever did it. This movie had that as the intro song to the movie, and it really piques your interest, man. From that to the 50s and 60s music they use, all of it. It just works so incredibly well, and the performances here, from everybody from Arnie and Dennis to the girl who's the love interest of Arnie's, named Lee. She is so hot, dude. She's so hot, but she's so good in the movie. And she's a character who comes in later, who clearly cares about Arnie for who Arnie is. She thinks he's a nice guy, even though he's kind of transitioning into that bad boy character, that greaser light, if you will. Even down to the bullies. The bullies' characters and actors are really done well. They're menacing sons of bitches. I hate their guts, but they're great. They're good to hate. They kind of have their varying aspects. Like, you have the one lead guy who kind of looks like John Travolta, and he's a total asshole. He's always using foul words all the time. Then you have kind of like the chubbier guy that hangs out with him that's a little bit of a doofus, who if he wasn't in league with these guys, he would be beaten up and stuffed in lockers if he could fit into one by these guys. I love the variations on these guys. You have kind of the weirdos that are real skinny, in the group. They do a lot. John Carpenter does a lot with this movie and does so much to really make it fun. I'm surprised the writer of this film didn't do a whole lot outside of this movie because of how good it was. If I remember correctly, I think I read that Christine flopped in theaters, which is insane to me. It's one of those things like The Thing, which also flopped in theaters, got terrible reviews. But to this day, people talk about The Thing being a masterpiece, just like they do Halloween. Christine and John Carpenter's Vampires are two great hidden gems that no one talks about. Even fans of Carpenter don't talk about enough, in my opinion. Christine is phenomenal. I love it. I recommend it so highly. It's so beautifully directed. I'm sure a Blu-ray of this movie would make it even better, but I'm not going to invest the money to go get that anytime soon, unless I found one dirt cheap. I love it. Christine is a masterpiece, in my opinion. Probably easily in the top 5. At the very most, I would say top 10 if it doesn't make it into the top 5. Adaptations of a Stephen King book, ever. Because it's so much better than the book. It's one of those amazing ones like The Stand, like Misery, that I could watch on repeat over and over again, and like the original It movie from the 90s. Anyway, Christine, amazing how fast the pacing is on this. It's almost 2 hours long, and it just doesn't feel like it. My wife came in the room when I was watching this. She had never seen it or heard of it before, and even she was engaged in the third act of the movie with how tense and creepy it gets. It's not a scary movie per se, but it's the kind of movie teenagers nowadays talk about how they vibe with movies. That's what this is. It has a vibe to it, and I hate that shit. I hate saying that stupid-ass phrase, but Christine has that. And it's pristine, for that matter. I love the damn movie. Anyway, if I had to rate the film on a 5-star basis, I think it's very clear I have no flaw whatsoever anywhere in this movie, and I would rate it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect, man. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, take out the time, go watch it. Easily in the top 5 Carpenter films of all time. Anyway, have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you think this remake they've been trying to make for like 20 years will ever come off the ground? I would be very surprised if it ever does. I would like to see that, especially with what they could do with CGI nowadays and stuff, which I don't know if I love that. But even the practical effects they could do nowadays probably wouldn't measure up to what this movie did, what Carpenter had, unless they made it super bloody or super creative. I feel like they would make this movie, this remake, too goofy, so I kind of don't want that. I think they would make it into a horror comedy, and I don't want that either. Christina's not that story in the book or this movie, so it deserves better. We'll see if we ever get that movie. Apparently it's still listed on IMDb of being a project in the works, so we'll see. You know who would do a damn good job on this? Probably Mike Flanagan. I would love to see Flanagan touch the Christine concept because of how good he is with Stephen King stuff, but overall, I would still like to see it, but it's not going to be as good as this one. It's just not going to. Anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.